People were sharing the story.
Personally, yeah.
So 24 hours later, it cottons onto the local media, the Swindon Advertiser, and they ran a headline, front page headline. They went up the wrong mountain, 2 got lost, but they still raised £2,000. So all of a sudden, now everyone loves one of these, jokes. Like it's almost like a Richard Curtis comedy, right?
Yeah,
we were the butt of the joke, but we turned tragedy into triumph in a way. That Swindon Advertiser story, I swear to this day, is probably the most read article that newspaper publication has ever had.
I can imagine.
Because then people started sharing it. And as you can imagine, Facebook was in its early days, but people had started sharing it on Facebook. And Twitter wasn't really a thing. I mean, it was, but it wasn't.
Yeah, early days.
But people were sharing it and sharing it and sharing it. And, it just went viral. And I mean, it was a viral news story. The next day, we're in every media publication you can imagine. The Sun, the Mirror, the Telegraph, the Times. I'm getting phone calls now from journalists asking for interviews.
Wow.
The Sunday Times that week ran a feature on me. Using a stock photo that we'd taken up the wrong mountain of me triumphantly halfway up a peak, and it was like a day in the life of Davis. And I was like this. It was a bit like being Eddie the Eagle, right?
Yeah.
Literally, everyone was laughing at me for this failure, but the publicity was generating income for the charity page, the Just Giving page. That £2,500 went up to £15,000.
Wow.
And look, it was absolutely crazy. The whole time back then was a whirlwind. I just remember literally feeling like a 5-minute celebrity because the media, the news, I was on BBC Points West. There was a show with Matthew Wright. Do you remember him?
Yes,
The Right
I do.
Stuff?
The Right Show.
He called me a right Wally on this show. He's like, David, you Wally, you imbecile. But all this publicity was just great for the charity. The pinnacle of that, the absolute pinnacle, was being featured on Have I Got News for You?
Yeah.
The mountain climbers story, Ben Nevis Stob Ban. A group of 5 friends set out to scale Ben Nevis as part of the 3 Peaks Challenge for charity, but they climbed one called Stob Ban instead. When did the climbers suspect something may not be right?
Welcome to the Stob Ban touristic attraction by your Stob Ban calendar here at the top of the mountain.
Well, according to team leader Damien Davis, we had a gut feeling we might have taken the wrong turn, but from ground level, those mountains all look about the same height.
And that quote has lived with me for the last nearly 15 years.
Wow, that's incredible. So how much did you end up raising?
It's just over £15,000 for leukemia research.
So then what happened next? So obviously you've raised all this money, you're the talk of the town. What happened then?
Well, you may recall, summer of 2012 in London, the Olympic Games. You remember Seb Coe and all the fanfare. So what you may also remember is that there was a big torch relay, the Olympic torch, carrying that Olympic flame on its iconic journey from Athens, round the UK, ending up at the cauldron at the Olympic Stadium. And there was a call for nominations. There was a number of celebrities, there were some sporting heroes, and there was some slots open for what they called local heroes, teachers, doctors, community heroes. Now, Kay, Wayne's mum, had nominated me via one of the Olympic Games sponsors, Samsung. And she basically said the story, said, look, I've laughed so much, I've got all this legacy left from my son's, memory of raising this money for leukemia research. And like I say, it was a team effort for Team Wayne. I have to be absolutely clear, trying to be humble with feet on the ground. But I was the PR guy, I was the face of it. I was certainly the one who took all the brunt from the people on the news stories. And she'd nominated me to carry the torch. So just in December 2011, before the summer of 2012, it was almost a year to the day of Wayne's wedding. I get this email from Samsung and it says, you have been chosen to carry the Olympic torch.
Yeah.
I was like, wow.
Yeah.
Not even realising what that...
If you think about it, from going up the wrong mountain, right,
Yeah.
that one thing led to all that goodness.
Yeah, I know. It's Schadenfreude? No, that's the wrong term. It's just irony in a way. But then, in the summer of 2012, it was July 2012, and I was chosen to carry the Olympic torch through the Wiltshire village of Ludgershall. It's about 20 minutes from my house, 25 minutes. So all the locals arranged 2 coaches to go down to this village, and the streets were just lined. I just remember the fanfare, all the crowds like whooping and cheering. I mean, there was a lot of interest in the Olympics and the torch relay, notwithstanding the fact that there was a lot of very famous people. I mean, you may remember Sir Steve Redgrave lit the cauldron. You know, David Beckham, Didier Drogba carried it through Swindon, right? He did so much work for schools in Africa, and that, you know, is another reason he was chosen. But there's all these famous people. Basically Claire Balding carried it the same day as me through one of the nearby towns. And I remember seeing them. We were basically ferried onto these buses and then dropped off at certain locations along the route. And there was like lots of security, as all the Olympic Games, like the security and police running either side. And I just remember, literally felt like a rock star, pop star, media star. Yeah. You know, I'm carrying the flame, and there's 7-8 billion people on the planet. I'm the only person on the planet at that moment in time carrying the historic Olympic flame.
That's a special moment.
Very special. And I can honestly say, look, you know, I'm the father of 3 children, which is clearly very personal, but carrying that Olympic flame is something that, let's be honest, there are very few people in this world that will ever do that, even though the Olympic Games comes around every 4 years. It's such a small, select set of people. You know, people do challenges, they become famous. There's a lot of reality TV these days, but how many people can say they carried the Olympic flame? And I feel very blessed, very fortunate, very lucky, especially with what led up to me actually being chosen in the first place. But I still did it. I carried that Olympic torch. And it really is a memory that will truly live with me forever. I still have the torch. It hangs in my office.
They gave you the torch?
Yeah, they gave me
a replica.
There was a bit of controversy, which we probably won't go into too much detail, but there was people were charged for the torches. But it wasn't a replica, it was the actual torch that I carried. Wow. So at the end of the relay, after I've done the kiss with the other torchbearer, past the flame, it's a bit like a mini barbecue, a gas barbecue. So you've got this torch and it's brass and it's lovely, lovely design, and inside is basically a gas cylinder. That's how they transport the flame from torch to torch. So at the end, after the next person's taken the flame and gone off, I then go back to the security people. They then twist it to turn the gas off, and they take the gas canister out to make it safe. So it's now, like I say, it's just an empty torch without the gas in it, and they let me keep that. So that's it's hanging on the wall in my office.
That must be worth some dollar.
There was talk, someone sold one for like £200,000 that year. And again, there was a lot of controversy. People were saying, should people be making money off this? I've promised it to my daughter, so it hangs proudly on the wall in my office.
That sounds good. So then, what do people at work say about it?
Well, actually, I just started a new job. I literally just started. So at the very end of 2011, so in between being nominated and carrying the Olympic torch, I changed jobs and I started working for actually who I work for today, ServiceNow.
Okay.
But ServiceNow back then was a very, very different company to the ServiceNow that people know today. It was a small startup, pre-IPO. Most of the staff were in San Diego in California. There were approximately 50 to 80 people in the UK that made up the whole of the European contingent of the company, and the rest were in San Diego.